like the thought that every book has its destiny. In this episode, I want to share with you several books that talk about the more than 500 years survival journey of this exceptional and historically important book. You will discover that it is a book with many destinies. Welcome back to Bold Books and Balls. If you or I would have the chance to see this book in a library or a museum, then we would be extremely lucky. For the reason that this book belongs to the very rare group of books called the Editio Princeps, meaning that it is the first edition of a book. Now, this first edition is not like any other first editions, because it was the first substantial printed book in the history of Western culture. It used movable type and it was printed around 1450. The last time a complete version of this book was sold was in 1978, and the price was $2.4 million. The one I show you here is of course not an original, but a beautifully made facsimile edition by Taschen. You probably already guessed it. I'm talking about the Gutenberg Bible. This book is often referred to as B42 because it has 42 lines on a page, which is one way to distinguish it from a very similar but later 36 lines edition. And this particular one is a reproduction of the Göttingen edition. The original version of this book was in 2001 inscribed in the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. I say Göttingen edition because if you hear about the Gutenberg Bible, then it is best to ask which one, since it was estimated that 500 years ago about 180 copies of this book were made. And we know that only about 48 or 49 made it to the 21st century. Well, some of them made it but became incomplete. They have missing leaves, some even have an entire volume missing. Other surviving copies are in an even worse condition. The only thing that is left of them is one or several pages. Some of these pages were even used as wrappers for other books. In spite of that, even these very rare pages are called the noble fragments, and they are worth a lot of money. If you're interested, there is even a pound store episode about it, where Adam Weinberger tries to sell such a noble fragment for $65,000. You can find the link in the comments section. And if you love rare books, then I highly recommend his Instagram page and his YouTube channel. Now, if we also count all these surviving fragments that were rediscovered so far, then about 64 different copies of the Editio Princeps can be identified, and there might be more. And no, this is not an original noble fragment, but a reproduction made by the Gutenberg Museum in Mainz, Germany. It is beautifully illuminated with this elegant design. This one page is actually my favorite part of this old text. It starts with the intriguing sentences. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And a few verses further we read, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." I love this part because to me it is about the exceptional importance of words and about the allegory of the eternal dynamic between light and darkness. Okay, I got carried away. Back to the story. The Gutenberg Bible is actually a copy of the famous Vulgate, which was a translation from Greek and Hebrew texts into Latin by Saint Jerome in the 4th century AD. Even in those days, there was this need to create some standard and generally accepted version of the Bible. We can read in this Gutenberg Bible that Saint Jerome was frustrated by the many different versions of the Bible texts that existed. And in some places he is quite explicit about it. For example, in the prologue to the Gospels he writes, "There are almost as many copies as there are manuscripts." What helped me a lot in better understanding this Göttingen edition of the Gutenberg Bible is this companion book written by Stefan Füssel. Every facsimile book by Taschen comes with such a book that provides you with guidance and context about the main publication. I was very happy that this book was recommended to me at the Gutenberg Society booth during the book fair in Frankfurt. It is called Editio Princeps and it was written by Eric Marshall White. The subtitle of the book reads A History of the Gutenberg Bible. In this exceptional book, the author did the remarkable work of researching what is known about each of the surviving first editions. We cannot learn from this book what their final destiny will be, since that would be impossible, of course. However, for each of the surviving books or fragments, we learn about its 500-year travel and about what destiny has provided so far for each of them. We know that each of the Gutenberg Bibles was printed in Mainz by Johannes Gutenberg. Although this invention of movable type changed forever the way we reproduce and mass produce our human knowledge, this particular Bible, which was a first and remarkable product of this invention, was somehow quickly forgotten. We learn from Eric Marshall White's book that it is only about 300 years after the Gutenberg Bible was printed that people started to realize the importance of this specific first edition. And as of then, a more conscious search for this unique book started. The questions were, of course, where are the Gutenberg Bibles? And how many are left? It is mainly during the 18th and the 19th century that these first editions are starting to emerge again. The author Eric Marshall White talks about each of the Bibles in the chronological order in which they were rediscovered, by citing private letters, consulting old catalogs and other historical documents that mention a particular copy of this book. He reconstructs their stories and their survival journeys all the way to our current times of this digital age. You read this book as if it is one big factual investigation, and the author seems to be so dedicated or even obsessed to learn everything there is to learn about each surviving copy. For a book nerd like me, who is interested in the destiny of human knowledge, this is of course simply paradise. We learn how many of the first editions were moved to new locations due to various reasons. One example is a copy that moved location once its owner, Sir Mark Masterman Sykes, died in 1823. His brother, Sir Taton Sykes, decided to sell the Gutenberg Bible and many other valuable books from his brother's extensive library, so he could enhance his collection of hunting dogs. It is, by the way, this particular copy that some decades later ends up as one of the 3 Gutenberg Bibles in the Morgan Library in New York. A more astonishing story that started during the Second World War is the one where a special unit of the Soviet army called the Trophy Brigade, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Margarita Ivanovna Rudomino, who was a professional librarian, secretly transported the Gutenberg Bible and other valuable books from Leipzig to a place beyond the Iron Curtain. This happened in 1946. The whole story was kept secret during the Cold War until 1990, when Mrs. Rudomino was on her deathbed. Only then she told her secret to her colleague Ekaterina Geneva as a kind of last will. She told her, "The Gutenberg Bible is somewhere in the Lenin Library. The world should know." Why I liked reading this book by Eric Marshall White is that we learn from it how the history of this first edition of this important book is intertwined with the history of the world. His meticulous research is impressive, and it is the right book for everyone who wants to know everything there is to know to date about the Editio Princeps. A quick ask from you. If you like this content or any other content I made so far, then I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel and share the link of the Bold Books and Bones channel with someone that you think would be interested in books and stories about books. Thank you. Back to the episode. While learning about the Gutenberg Bible, I came across this insightful book written by Margaret Leslie Davis. The title reads The Lost Gutenberg. While the previous book gives an overview of all the Gutenberg Bibles, this book focuses on the life of the Gutenberg copy number 45. This particular copy is an incomplete version of the Gutenberg Bible because only the volume of the Old Testament survived to date. Margaret Leslie Davis tells in a detailed and compelling way the journey that destiny has provided so far for number 45. We learn from her book how this particular first edition has literally traveled across the globe. We discover how some of its owners saw it as pure investment. Others even used it to pay off their gambling debts. And yet others purchased it for lots of money due to their deep passion for the printed word, and because they were conscious that this book is a hallmark of humanity. I love to share this quote with you. It was sent by telegram in 1947, and this is the quote. "It was not only the earliest, but actually the most beautiful work of printing the world has ever known. It was the first work to come from any press using movable types. The ink, now nearly 500 years old, is today as black and glossy as the hair of a Japanese beauty." This message was sent by an American bookseller called A.S.W. Rosenbach. He sent it to an extremely wealthy book collector called Mrs. Estelle Doheny. He wanted, of course, to convince her to buy this particular book. We learn how her passion for books came about and how she created through the years a unique and extremely valuable library that contains many rare editions of historically important books and manuscripts. And then, at an old age, and while she was almost blind, she grabbed the rare opportunity to purchase a Gutenberg Bible. It is a true story in which a book plays the leading role. There are several moments that are beautifully described by Margaret Leslie Davis in this book biography that really stuck with me. There is, for example, the part where totally new insights about the book came to light through the daring procedure of using a nuclear device. The process is called proton induction X-ray emission, or pixie in short. It is the first time in the history of mankind that such a procedure was used to analyze the paper and ink of a Gutenberg Bible. Through this unusual research, new insights about the ink and about the production procedure of this exceptional first edition were revealed. This is an example of human collaboration at its best. People from totally different fields like the nuclear sciences and the arts join together to use their collective intelligence and through that reveal breakthrough information about our common human past. However, just like there are ups and downs in a human life, the same goes for the journey of the Gutenberg Bible number 45. On March the 7th, 1987, the Los Angeles Times published the article called "The Doheny's Sacred Secular Treasure Trove Soon to be Lost." This article covers the story of how the exceptionally valuable library of Miss Doheny was dissolved and sold to the highest bidder. This was done to raise money for a seminary program of the St. John Seminary in Camarillo near Los Angeles. Margaret Leslie Davis talks at length about this development in the chapter called "The Unexpected Betrayal." Finally, in 1996, fortune turned its wheel again, and this first edition was purchased by Keio University in Tokyo. And it's thanks to the HUMI project, created by the Keio University, that this unique edition is now fully digitized and is made available and accessible to everyone online. I very much recommend the book called "The Lost Gutenberg" by Margaret Leslie Davis, because I enjoyed learning so many interesting details, not only about how a book travels through time, but also I found it enriching to learn which kind of people this book attracted on its more than 500 years survival journey. I hope you liked this episode and the 3 books that I shared with you. You can find more information about them in the comment section underneath. I hope to see you at the next episode. Meanwhile, stay curious and stay free. Bye for now.